Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, and we are here at Huzzah Hobbies in Ashburn, Virginia, and we're gonna talk about Blood and Plunder. And with me is Glenn Goddard, or Triple G as we like to call him.
Arr.
And one of our new guys that we talked about who will be doing a lot of bolt action, Turhan Buckley.
Howdy.
And we got to think of a nickname for him. So right now, until something happens, it's going to be Turhan.
Very good. That's fitting.
Yeah, Union of the Snake. And we just got finished playing a 200-point per side Blood and Plunder game. And we put the pictures up on Facebook. But, Turhan, this is the first time you played the game. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, it was great. It was actually a lot better than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be like a lot more simple, a lot more like just quick-paced.
Well, had Glenn and I known the rules, it would have been a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's fair. But, yeah, like the depth of it goes like a lot deeper. Like after I was looking at the special rules page, I was like, holy crap.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, they put a lot of thought into it. And like you were saying, like there's a clear like love for the game, like for the project from the developers. So I'd say like if you're into that, that era of history and like that it's like a must play for people.
Okay, so here's a good question. If you're not into it, is it still a good game to pick up?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the boats. I think it's a crossover of like combined arms from like tanks and stuff like that. Instead you have boats and, infantry and stuff like that. And then I would love to see in the future like beach landings and boat combat, and then there's like land combat on one side of the table, like boat combat on the other.
They do have it.
And that's all in the game. You can play land ship, or ship.
Yeah.
So it depends on what kind of force you feel like having.
Yeah, so we played, and I'll tell you about the list that we created today, and it was two of the lists that is going to go up on my article on the 19th, was the French Buccaneers with Les Infants, filibusters, threw in a unit of Sea Dogs and a unit of Marines. And the list that I'm really getting partial to is the one Turhan ran, which is the Scottish Militia, which gets the Quick and the Brawler special rule, which came in handy today.
It did come in handy.
And it's that's a 20 model list. The other one is 18. Glenn, you were running 200 points of Tercios, defend.
Right, and Tercios are the regular Spanish army. And so this is part of the new models that they recently came out with. And so you have actually the box is called European Land Forces. So you can run regulars, as you would call it, in French, Spanish, British, whatever you like. And so these were kind of, the more experienced veteran units, but they're pretty powerful. They did a good job today.
So in today's mission, we use one of the new cigar box mats, which those guys do amazing mats. And actually, I heard this, like, they kind of designed it for Blood and Plunder players, which, thank you. And I can't wait for their next Kickstarter. So we set up 3 objectives on an island. The Spanish were defending, and Turhan and I came on 2 different points. So Glenn kind of had to cover both landing sites because he knew where we were landing. In the days of Buccaneers, the ship pulls up. The longboats are heading towards, and you can see some of the pictures. And then we came on. What I noticed is my unit was, engaging with your Lanceros. Those guys are deadly. Now, on the other side of the table, you did a little what we like to call, pirate fire and maneuver. You got a lucky hit with your guys, and then tell us what happened.
Yeah, well, basically, I just planned it out as an Omaha beach landing and kind of hit the beach with everything I could at once. And what I didn't anticipate is how slow a lot of the infantry moves. So if you get bogged down on a beach, so Glenn had like a cannon on me, on my guys, and I was like, oh crap. And so basically just slowly but surely moving up my beach. But Mitch, you got a lot further on your side than I did.
I also died a lot more.
Yeah.
Which
played into the Spanish hands.
Yes, well, you fell into my evil trap, and but like you said, the Lanceros are what really tore you up. Those guys.
I hate them.
the stabby guys do really well
The guys
in this
ambush,
game.
Yeah, they just came out of nowhere. And then you were up against, I believe, what was it, militia in the woods in
Yes,
front of him?
correct, Yeah.
And you had a militia unit also on me. So I'm getting shot at, and then all of a sudden the Lancero. And I had 3 units. I mean, all my units came on right there. And then I lost one rather quickly. But it's a, you know, and at the end, you know, so we did was we put the 3 objectives up. So we kind of got 2 of them, but really we needed all 3 to kind of win. There's no way we were going to bust into that house.
Yeah.
He treated
Not
me
so
down.
much.
Huh?
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we just, you know.
Well, you didn't even get to my soldados who had plug bayonets as an option.
Yeah.
So that would have been like a whole bunch more Lanceros you would have been fighting if you got that far.
Yeah. So so what I'm digging about the game, and it's great that, you know, you're brand new, is the flavors of some of these forces are pretty good. They're really good at specific things. And once again, the game kind of forces you to balance them out. As much as I really like that French Buccaneer list, which was, I say, hey, if I had to go play tomorrow, that would be my list, I was more impressed with what the Scottish militia could do. And maybe I would break them down to more than 3 units. But I kind of like them. You're a Spanish first player, and with the Lanceros, I don't doubt that. Is that?
Absolutely. And I also did, you noticed on my units, I had the Lanceros, I made it 6 figures, so they have a little bit more staying power. But
Yeah.
the other units, I had small units, and that gives me more cards with which to play and select. And you went with large clubs. So you lose some on your mobility by having the big clumps of units. But, of course, eventually that would let you take more shots. So, you know, Turhan hitting me with having 8 guys shoot at me really was, even though he needed a lot to hit, he's going to hit with 8 shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting those fatigue counters on there is actually, it's a big deal. It kind of reminds me of bolt action a little bit where, you know, you're like keeping people kind of.
It's similar to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from you and I know you only got to see just a blush of the forces in this game. I noticed you were looking at the box sets. What would you be interested in playing?
Probably British the most.
Really?
Actually, yeah, I really like shooting in the game because it's like you have to be very positional when you're shooting because, you know, it's hard to shoot, but it's also hard to maneuver into
Now, that
positioning.
Scottish militia unit is British,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But playing like, you know, like a general, like European, like Lion Army, just lots of, you know, rifles and
You see,
muskets and stuff.
and you know, you may have changed. You would have changed your mind on that if you would have gone up against the Lanceros. And that's the reason. So I created that French Buccaneer list with the infants produce and the stabby dudes just because of the Lanceros. And I could tell you this, it didn't do because it took me 2 units and like 4 turns to break those guys.
Which you did. You did eventually have the Lanceros just go away, but yeah, it took a lot of your force to do that, and I think that points to, you know, you got to really kind of plan it out, like how much shooty space am I going to allow myself, and then how much am I going to at some point then just say I close with it, and you know, and again back to the Brits, if you want to do that, a lot of the regular infantry units, then you can take plug bayonets. So you can shoot, and then you've got a spear because you fix your bayonet and charge, just like classical, you know,
that's very cool.
15th, 16th century warfare.
You also get some indigenous forces that can have spears and bows and some of those other lists, but I looked at them, and they look like really hard to play. Like you can get African warriors.
Yeah.
In some of the British lists.
Yeah, you know, like you look at the African warriors, and as you would expect, they don't have much for equipment, but their stats are so good. They're tough as nails.
They're
and
stabby.
Really, yeah.
From what I
super
imagine,
stabby.
they're probably pretty quick, like agile. Is that right? Like, do they have like a higher movement or anything like that?
No, everything moves at 4, but they have special rules. I think they get the quick special rule.
Probably, yeah. And like I say, you have to look at the special rules that each unit kind of makes the flavor of that unit,
Right.
and then figure out how that works. So, for example, I had the militia with skirmishers, so they can actually jump out, shoot, and then they get a free move back. And so,
And that's a new rule in No Peace Beyond the Line, right?
I know we had that before.
They had that before?
Yeah. But you really have to take a look at how all that works, and for example, my Lanceros, I can move through terrain without any penalty because they're a light unit.
I believe the African warriors can too.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing you look at. So, for example, maybe you hide at the back of the woods so you can't get shot at, but when they get close enough, you just run through those woods and jump out and get them in hand-to-hand.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, too. So if you pick up the British starter box, I did as well. That was my first box. I never played British. I played pirates mostly with them because you can pretty much...
Everybody was a pirate.
Yeah, everybody was a pirate. So you can do a lot of pirate stuff. And, you know, as we talked to Mike Tunez, the game's kind of forgiving. So you have, like, those 8 English militia shooters, but they can be filibusters. They can be freebooters. The game's kind of forgiving with that. What is neat, though, is like my guy for Blunderbuss really had one today. My guy with the Grenados really had one today. Because, you know, I like the Grenados.
The Grenados, you did a good job today. I mean, you took out, I think you got 1 grenade, killed 2 guys or something like that. So, you know, like I said, it's a game where this is not a beer and pretzels game. You really got to look at the subtleties of it and how you do force build and all that. Yeah.
And I tell you what, you know the force build and... There's a few things about the website, and we have an article coming out about it. Like, I wish it was a little clearer and cleaner, but I think it's great. Like, you can spend hours on force building in this game.
Yeah, definitely. After seeing just all the selections for each nation, too.
It's kind of mind-boggling.
Very expansive.
So, and I started with English. You're going to eventually venture into something else because those pirate lists are really going to become attractive to you.
Yeah.
And it just gives you that much more flavor. Like, just because you get a box of X doesn't mean you have to play it all the time, which I kind of like.
No, it's very true. In fact, for people that don't know it, so even though you're going to pick English or Spanish or whatever, then within each of those countries, they'll have plus or minus 6 different type of army lists. And each army list will have, you know, some special ability to come with it, but also restrictions on which type of units you can take. And so, again, even though you only have 1 force, you can actually play a variety of styles, take the same miniatures, but how you mix it up, you can play one that's more shooty, more melee, whatever you like.
Yeah, and did you notice that about your force? You had those guys that came in, and they're pretty good. I think with that Scottish list, I would take out the militia.
Yeah.
And then maybe add another stabby unit.
Well, your stabby guys did very well, right? They came up and killed 3 guys in one swing.
Yeah, Brawler special rule. He got a 10, so he got the re-roll one.
Generating attacks is no joke.
So who do you think would like this game that's not yet playing it?
I think anybody with any interest in historical miniatures would love it. You know, it's like a fine line where it's like it really portrays like history really well, but at the same time it's not like too intense where it's like, you know, Flames of War 3rd edition, which is why I think they made a lot of changes. 4th edition made it more like arcadey in quotes. You know, Blood and Plunder, it feels good to play. You don't feel like bogged down. I have to say, I think my favorite part about it is like the HQ units. You know, they actually feel like they're doing something.
The commanders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
very
like
important.
They are like the best commander units of any tabletop game I've played in a while, because you know even the miniature is really representative. Like they're standing, they're like pointing at stuff, and the moment you activate them, they do so much for you, you know, and like there's such a presence on like the entire game board. You don't really get that with a lot of other things. Like in Warhammer, they're like super units where they're like killing tons of people.
But you're paying premium for that in this game.
Yeah, exactly.
And for a 200-point list, you took a commander that had a very big command radius, but it worked out for you.
Well, I needed that because I'm kind of stuck in the middle, and I've got to reach units on both sides where you guys came in kind of clustered groups. But what really gets into your commander is the timing of using them. So for those of you that aren't into the game, unlike commanders in a lot of games where they just kind of affect the unit they're with or one unit, these commanders actually can reach out and yell across the battlefield and tell a guy to take an extra move or to, you know, reload their muskets or things like that. So timing is a huge deal with learning how to use your commander, because if you use them in the beginning, there might not be extra units that need rally tests or reloading, but if you wait till the very end, well, maybe you've saved your best unit till, you know, there's not enough left to fight.
Yeah.
But also using him first is you can clear up some of those fatigues
from the previous turn. Yeah,
and
you're right.
you can maintain your table initiative by clearing up the fatigue of some units and then charging them right away. So I guess it proves his point, and I'm pointing at Turhan. You guys can't see that it really kind of – they really do things. It really affects how each turn is played.
Yeah, I mean, it's key to the game. It's a great mechanic that these guys have worked out.
Yeah. I'm excited. I know we didn't get to play with ships today, but there's a few things I noticed today. And Mike, we love you, but there's a few things that right away is I need a card book for the cards, because as I was trying to build a list, it took me forever to find. I had to do it for 2 lists. The cards. The cards are great, but I need to organize them better. And the other thing, too, is I know you could download those sheets, the quick reference, but they really need to come up with something that is a real – and I'm sure I can go in and do some PDF magic, like a real quick reference. Cause
I'm sure Mike would appreciate it if you would do that.
You think he would? Yeah. Well, I don't know. He might – he's a good guy, and he looks like a pirate. So, I just think, those are some things that I know we kept looking at. And then the other thing, too, that Turhan noticed that Glenn and I had is we play so many of these damn games that we often forget the rules between we can't distinguish one game from another, I guess. Maybe it's sign
it
of
has
old
nothing
age.
to do with the fact that we have gray hair.
Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with because it's like, is that in this game? Because maybe there's only so many games your mind can hold. Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to become a one-trick gamer and just concentrate on one game, but
you have gamer ADD.
I have gamer ADD. Yeah.
Just like the rest of us, pretty much.
Yeah, sure.
You got to keep a couple games on rotation. Focus on
So what are you playing besides Bolt Action?
So I actually just got into Drop Zone Commander.
Uh-oh.
Even though the community has been kind of dying down because the first edition. So I don't know if you know, but Hawk War Games, they got bought out by TT Combat.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So I think their process of getting everything switched over has been taking a little bit longer. But I feel like it's actually one of the best times to get into the game now that second edition is coming out soon. And it's actually a relief painting stuff that's not 28 millimeter.
What's the scale of that game?
10 millimeter for Drop Zone.
Oh, really?
So you paint everything super fast. It's super quick. It's a nice break. You don't see details as much.
You must have a hard time painting the eyes on those 10 millimeter guys.
You need that really good wash. And but Bolt Action's your main game.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't get a chance to speak to him last podcast, but he's the guy that helped me build my list. And I played him in the last game. And I said, hey, well, thanks a lot. And he goes, yeah, you made some stupid moves. But he said, your list sucked. So he didn't say that. No, but it's like with that game.
Well,
this is what's going to happen to you when your son finally becomes a teenager. So I hope
it's going to be a year from next month. He'll be a teenager.
For those who don't know, I also helped Mitch build his list before the event.
No, that's what I meant. Yeah. Oh, for those who have read, and he's going to start writing a lot of stuff for Bolt Action. But so in your area, is there any buzz for this game? And he's from San Francisco, the Bay Area, the city that never sleeps.
The Barbary Coast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty big play group in San Francisco. We played Endgame out of Oakland. We have a Pacific campaign going on right now that we play once or twice a month, and that's awesome. Usually 10 people show up. If you guys are in the area, feel free to stop by.
And I'll endorse. I've been there many times. Endgame is one of the best game stores in the nation.
Yeah.
A fantastic venue and really, really unique in downtown Oakland.
Yeah, and if you're a Warhammer player, there's a really popular podcast called The Independent Characters, and they operate out of Endgame too.
Does Endgame have a website we can plug?
I'm sure they do. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but they have a massive Facebook group too.
I'll see if we can put it in the link for this podcast. So, do you think that group would enjoy this game?
Yes, definitely. I think most of the people that play, it's always my opinion that there's two types of wargamers. There's the fantasy guys, fantasy sci-fi, and then there's historical. Yeah, I think anybody who's into historical anything would love Blood and Plunder.
Well, anybody who loves pirates, which is every kid from age 3 up.
How can you not like pirates? They even had a show, right? Under the Black Flag or something. They had their own TV show.
Yeah, I heard that was a pretty good show.
Yeah, and I heard it's too. I need to watch it, but you know what I like about it? There's so many aspects of the game that are just fun. One of the interesting fun parts is too when you're getting ready to flip your card for initiative. It's that Mexican standoff look everybody has, and you're sitting there thinking like, what do I really want to do now? And you flip it over, and then it's the constant with the impulses, which also I like about bolt action. It's not let me watch you do your stuff. This one it kind of moves back and forth, which is it's kind of neat. I think this is, and I'm going to counter a point that Turhan made is. That's 100% true. There are two types. However, when it comes to sci-fi and fantasy, it's not my thing. But if I see a tight rule system, I'll play it. Like I got Stronium Dogs last weekend. I picked up Malifaux, which was a waste of time because I've never played it. I know Glenn gave me a look like Malifaux, you, but these are tight game systems. Pirates is something I've always wanted to be one. So it was, and it's historical. But I think it has that pulpy aspect, especially some of the commanders and some of the forces that I think it bridges both. But I think for a tight rule system, I would go play a tight rule system, even if it's not my thing. And with that said, if anybody wants to buy a not undead, I forgot, I have the guild or whatever the heck that is, just make me an offer. They're already painted to my mediocre standard, and I'm willing to sell it. Plus, version 3 of that is coming out, so nobody's playing it right now. So, I know. What do you guys think about that? Like, what draws you to a game besides the history?
Well, I think the history is an important aspect. It's just like, so for example, my Spanish tercios I painted up, I didn't just pick pink and purple. I actually looked up historical documents and, what did they really, what kind of paint scheme do they have for their uniforms? And I like it to be authentic like that. But I would say, it's whatever game system is going to be in a background that, you feel that it's exciting and interesting. So, for example, I've never been particularly interested in Napoleonics. Now, I know a lot of guys like you are, but it didn't entice me. But if you said, hey, World War II, it's like, oh, my God, I studied so much of World War II. I'm all about it. I know all these facts. And it's interesting to see when you know some of the facts in the background, and then how does the game system apply that. And it gives you feel like you're in that type of battle. And that's the thing with Blood and Plunder. You feel like you're playing a 16th century game where, you can shoot, but now it takes me a long time to reload, and guys can, try to get close and then try to hack each other. It just feels right. And I think that's the important thing about any game system. If it feels right, then those are good rules.
What do you think?
I totally agree. I'm the same way. I like game systems that, specifically historical ones that entice me to learn more about the era. So immediately with Blood and Plunder, like when you're looking at a unit selection, you want to go on Wikipedia and look it up and do some research about that. So that's what's really exciting about it. But yeah, I totally agree. Like playing that game, I was kind of worried about like Blood and Plunder at first being more of like less of a war game, but more of I guess like a card game with miniatures. You know what I mean? So it's less big epic scale battles, but it's still like the emphasis is on the models, like on the field. It's not like the cards that you have in your hand or like all the counters that are on the table.
You don't really need the cards. Matter of fact,
yeah,
the first few times we played, we didn't have the cards.
Yeah.
Well, you remember the very original game didn't have the cards.
Didn't have the cards.
You're supposed to look them up or make notes, and you would just play with a deck of cards instead of how we did with things that actually told you how many actions.
Yeah. Are those new? Did those come out like recently or?
They came out after the initial cards that had the 4 factions, the first 4, came out a couple of months after. Because I already had my stuff painted up and played it a few times when I picked it up.
Guys were actually using playing cards for a while, and then they started to make some money, and they came out with stuff that's been better. Same thing with the unit cards. Originally, they didn't have the unit cards.
Oh yeah.
And we'd have that. Actually, that's the best thing that came out within the whole game, as far as I'm concerned, is having those unit cards so you can keep everybody's stats straight.
Yeah. And it's great, too, because you only have a couple units on the board at a time, so you don't have a whole, 6x4 board of cards. Like
Well,
we only
right,
have like
right.
4 or 5 each,
Plus-
you know.
Plus, the other handy thing about the card is on the back they have the special rules for each unit and explains how those work. And that's
Exactly.
super handy, so you don't have to memorize everything.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at, so we've been putting our post on Facebook, and we're getting a lot of likes. And sadly, it's on my crappy models. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like you can see how the game kind of played out. You can see where I came in on the beachhead and got tied down. So I was at Omaha Beach, where my man over here was on Utah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's like I dig this game, and I wish we need to get a bigger crowd for it.
Well,
I think.
what we've talked about that, Mitch and I have talked about this, is we need to have events and really start trying to draw people in to something. So we're going to work on that, and hopefully we'll get a lot of people that just come out of the woodwork. That's what I find happens sometimes. You say, oh, nobody plays this game, but then you have an event and guys bring out stuff that they've had for a long time, and suddenly you got a crowd. They start playing.
Yeah, and that's the thing we talked about too at Nova Open. It's like for Bolt Action, the models are flying off the shelves. Guys have the models. Where are they? Who do they play with? What are they doing with these models? Are they just painting them and, hey, I got it just in case? Because we've all done that. We've all bought my Great War 28 millimeter. One day I'll play with those. But to get them out and play, and I think it was my experience in finding the community so helpful and then coming out and really learning the game at an event. A lot of people, I think it worries them because you don't know who you're playing across from. The guy could be like a maniac. In most cases, yeah, especially if you're playing me. But it's getting a good, friendly bunch of people out to kind of play this game. And it's, I think anyone that buys a box, we should have a tracker on them,
There you go. That's it.
Yeah, see if we can turn on their webcam and say, hey, stop running around your house in a towel and come and play Blood and Plunder, and we won't release these pictures. Oh, God, those guys are going to get so mad. But it's like, do you think that you would have a hard time getting your group into this?
Probably not. It's after seeing how cheap those starter sets are.
We don't want to say cheap. We want to say nicely priced.
Appropriately priced.
Because
Yeah.
we brought that up with Mike before, and we don't want him raising the prices.
I'm just kidding. They're actually perfectly priced.
They're
for what you
perfectly
get.
priced. Well, and is that an
Absolutely.
incentive, looking at the price point now and how inexpensive it is to get into the basics of this game, is that a selling point?
Yeah, definitely. Especially, and it's perfect because it kind of falls in line with the new era of skirmish games where you can buy an entire army for, $50-$60.
Yeah.
Like Kill Team coming out, Necromunda, and all the Games Workshop games, everyone, Armada, all the Fantasy Flight skirmish games, everyone loves that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is another perfect opportunity for them to be like, hey, look, you can build your entire army for $60.
Yeah, it's a low price of entry.
Yeah,
we were
exactly.
taking a look at some of they have starter sets for this, and basically all the starter sets come with 4 units and a commander, and you're ready to play with that.
And I believe they have the 2-player starter set now on the website.
Okay.
So also hit firelockgames.com. They're always running some type of special because I got all my stuff that's on its way to the house now, and I'm getting civilians. And you can also add those extra characters into your force, which I think is really kind of neat, and I want to play with that some.
Yeah, that's it. For those of you that don't know, with the expansion, No Peace Across the Line that just came out, they now have, in addition to regular units, you have little individual characters that for 1 to 3 points you can add to a unit, and then they give that unit another special ability. So they're continuing to expand the game's flavor in doing things like that. And like you said, they have a civilian that can operate, I think it's called espionage or something like that,
Yeah.
and then they can affect the other force because they've spied on them. And it really, really nice to see them expanding the flavor that you're allowed to have in these. They're not just set-piece units.
Well, when you get down, I think, into this level of skirmish, you want some pulpiness to it.
Absolutely.
If you look at Sharp's Practice or Chosen Men, these are Napoleonics. It has that pulpiness that I think people kind of dig. And the other one, too, is some of these guys that actually, the named characters in this game, some of them were kind of really interesting dudes. Like Blackbeard.
Well, I mean, the guy who wrote that, and I don't know if we can credit all to Mike, but you'd swear they have a PhD in pirate history. It's such an extensive, wonderful write-up on each of these historical characters. They really were there, and then he translates that history into some special abilities then that the character has and gives to your force.
And like he told us, there was a ton of forces that didn't make it into this book. Like they had to cut it off at a certain point.
Got to leave something for the third book.
But I'm trying to think of like what else could be out there, because you saw the amount of lists in this book, and you're like, well, how many factions are there? And I'm like, well, depends on how you want to call it. But like when you go into like especially non-aligned peripheral, and then indigenous forces now, like you have Danish pirates, you have like all of these different types of forces. It's not my strong area of history. I don't know that period, but I want to learn more about it.
Well, and it's interesting because I really didn't know that the Dutch were so piratical, but who knew? But apparently you look at the history and like, oh yeah, they were there. So there's a difference between kind of our common knowledge of the pirate era and then this actual historical research that then brings out such interesting forces. So, for example, if you're Canadian, you can play Canadians in this.
I do want to play that,
and they're pretty good. They fight very well. They're allied with the Indians, and they're pretty effective force. So they kind of got there's a force for everybody in there. You know, you don't just have to say, "Well, I'm the English and I just do this." They've got all sorts of levels and something to fit everybody's play style, I think.
Now, Turhan said when we were doing the things for bolt action, he goes, well, I'm an aggressive player. You may want to look at the Spanish. I think the Spanish are very – I think the Spanish and the French, to me, are the more aggressive lists. You saw what the Lanceros did, and then you saw, like, hey, some of my French units were hitting on 5s in close combat. They have some really good units. The British are very stand back and shooty, but they have like the Forlorn Hope units, and they can pull in like other types of units. To me, it's whatever starter box you get doesn't really mean that that's what you're going to end up playing.
Right.
But yeah, there's some really aggressive, super aggressive units in there.
That's cool.
There's also some hangbackers.
Well, the other thing too is that even within having a given set of miniatures or a type of unit, you can make that unit either more or less experienced. And so if you like, no, I want to have a horde, you can have a horde of a bunch of cheap guys and, oh, these guys died, I don't care. Or you can go the other way and have, hey, I've only got a few units, but they're all tough veterans and they're really hard to kill.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff in there too. But I had a fun time playing.
Thank you guys for introducing me. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, you may not thank us when you're buying stuff in a couple of months from now. And
I have to say, it will be a missed opportunity if they don't come out like a Pirates of the Caribbean themed army of some sort, like the Black Pearl, Captain Jack Sparrow miniatures or something.
I think they want to stay away from that.
I don't know if they can afford the IP on that quite yet.
So anyway, this is your first time back at Huzzah in a long time. Have you been here before?
No, I've actually never been here before.
So when this place first started, it was just that side, everything that was on that. Nobody can see me doing this. Then they added this area that we're sitting in now, and then this back area. But there was something new today. They have a snack bar that serves alcohol.
What? We could have had grog this whole time?
Yeah, you see right there. Chris got a liquor license for this place.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. But yeah, this Huzzah is one of the best game stores in the entire region because they've got the equivalent of like 3 retail stores all kit bashed together, so to speak. And you get lots of gaming space, very friendly, very clean. And you can have several types of games all going on at the same time, and nobody bothers each other because you got so much space to find your own place to play.
We were going to have him plug the store himself, but I can read his name just as well as he can, I think. So if you want to hold an event in Northern Virginia, it is Huzzah, Huzzah, events, all one word, at gmail.com. And Devin Sheba is the Shebla. What do you think that says there? Just Devin? He spells it with a Y. Yeah.
Gamers learn not to question each other.
Yeah.
It's just too much information sometimes.
Yeah. I used to spell my name with a K. So you can also hit him up on the website, huzzahhobbies.com, and stop by. Chris he's a gamer. He's one of us. So this has always been a good place. But now, I think since they have alcohol here, I think we should hold an event. I don't drink. I think we should have an event because the more you drink, the better I play.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
What do you think?
I think, we ought to have, we could have, those drinking games. It's like, your unit died, take a drink of grog, or something.
That's something that we should do. So I don't want to get, maybe this is too much, but we offered, No Dice, No Glory offered the guys at Firelock Games to host something at Nova Open next year, to have a really big event. We should throw in a regular tournament, but on a Saturday night have the after-hours tournament where we throw in the drinking aspect. What do you think? Glenn is looking at me like, I don't know if you think that is a bad idea or I'm going to buy more forces now. What do you think of that?
I think that sounds like a lot of fun. We'll have to no grog beyond the line or something like that.
And we could get real grog.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that
like
stuff?
Pirates, which would make it
yeah.
even more in flavor.
I would say if you dress like a pirate, you get an extra 5 points for your list.
I agree.
Oh, I think there's a lot we can play with here.
There's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, right. And I'll tell you what. So we want to get women into this game. And if you bring I don't know if I can say pirate wench. I just did. But, if you have, we'll give you an extra 5 points. For every piece of flair that you put on your pirate persona that day to include extra characters, we'll give you plus 5 points. And you're thinking that's not a lot. That's the difference between an experienced commander and a veteran commander. That can get you like a grizzled veteran in your ranks.
We need to stop this podcast before you just develop this whole thing right here on the fly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, we got to talk to them. Well, anyway, I'm going to turn it back to the studios. You'll be hearing quite a bit from Turhan's voice and Glenn, and then I will sign off for us. You guys say goodbye so I can sign us off.
See ya.
See you guys later.
Hey, and we'll turn it back and speak to you soon.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.